Well, hello there and welcome to our new series on the topic of cell division, where in order to multiply, cells divide. Get it? To multiply, divide, math joke. Okay, never mind. Well, in the last topic, we were looking at reproduction, and I hope you recall that we saw that there were two main types of reproduction, asexual and sexual. And hopefully you can still recall that under asexual reproduction, I talked about this thing called mitosis. And under sexual reproduction, I talked about this thing called meiosis, which was involved in producing gametes, or your sex cells. It turns out that both mitosis and meiosis are types of cell division. And so in this topic, we're going to take a closer look at both mitosis and meiosis. Right, so first a big picture of the topic. In this video, we're just going to explore the question of why cell division is important, both mitosis and meiosis. And then in the next few videos, we'll look at the process of mitosis, which involves lots of things, mitosis, the stages in mitosis. And then after that, we'll look at meiosis, and then everything that comes under meiosis, including the stages of meiosis. Alright, so don't worry about it. Hang on tight. We're going to go through it one step at a time. So for this video, we're just going to start off by asking the question, why is cell division important? So here are our learning objectives for this video. Why is mitosis important? Why is meiosis important? Alright, and you can find the information on these pages in your textbook. So to explore the question of why is mitosis important, I want you to start thinking about this interesting fact. The fact that all of us began as a single cell. We learned in the last topic that, we were all formed from a sperm fusing with an egg to form a zygote. Right? And the zygote is only one cell. But from that one cell, we become a person, right? A baby made up of many different types of cells. Hair cells, red blood cells, stomach cells, and so on. Now, how does that happen? How do we go from one cell to many different types of cells? Well, in order to do that, two processes are needed. The first process is called cell division, right? Because from one cell to go to many cells, you need to divide. That one cell needs to divide many times to form many cells. But that's not enough. The many cells need to differentiate, need to undergo differentiation so that they can take on different roles. Right? Some of the cells need to become red blood cells, some of the cells need to become stomach cells, and so on. So you need both cell division and differentiation to go from one cell to many different types of cells. Now it turns out that the cell division that's important for this is mitosis. Right? The zygote undergoes mitosis to divide and divide and divide to form many cells, which eventually becomes you. So why is mitosis important? Well, we've seen that it's needed for growth. It's needed for that zygote to grow and become an embryo and then to become a fetus. It's needed for this permanent increase in size. So for example, in plants, we also get mitosis for growth. So if you've grown green beans before, you'll see that growth takes place at certain points of the seed. In particular, growth takes place at these tips. So the shoot tip is what grows up into the stem and becomes the leaves, and the root tip is what grows up to become the entire system of roots. So it's at these tips where there's a lot of cell division taking place, a lot of mitosis taking place, so that there can be growth and a permanent increase in size. Now the other place where growth takes place would be your hair, your fingernails. These things grow very fast. It's all because of mitosis. Now, don't gross out yet, right? These two pictures are pictures of me at different points in my life. The first one is me with a very bad cut, a very bad wound, and the second one is me after coming back from a very hot country, and my skin is flaking off because of the sunburn. So mitosis is also important for repair and building back tissue that has been lost, maybe through cuts, or replacing dead skin cells which fall off from my skin every day. Now finally, mitosis is important for asexual reproduction. So for example, in the amoeba, right, in order to reproduce, it kind of splits into two. It divides into two by mitosis to form two new amoeba. And the potato, right, the potato has these buds, and these buds will grow by the cells in the buds will undergo mitosis, which causes this growth here asexually. So what exactly is mitosis, since it's so important? Well, to put it simply, mitosis is a kind of cell division where a parent cell divides to form two genetically identical daughter cells, meaning that these daughter cells contain the same number of chromosomes as the parent cell. We'll get a more accurate definition in the next video, but let's do with this for now. So by now, you should be aware that most of our body cells have 46 chromosomes, and they are called diploid because they have two sets of chromosomes. So here's the 46 chromosomes in all of our cells, and we can pair them up so that you have two sets of, let's say you have two sets of chromosome 1, you have two sets of chromosome 2, and so on. And you have two sets because one comes from your mother and one comes from your father. Right? So most of our body cells have 46 chromosomes. So looking back at mitosis, if the parent cell has 46 chromosomes and is diploid, then when the parent cell divides by mitosis, it will form two genetically identical daughter cells which are also diploid and have 46 chromosomes each. Now, in order for this to happen, something must happen before the parent cell divides. And of course, what must happen is that the DNA and the chromosomes need to be replicated. They need to be doubled so that there's double the amount of DNA, and when the parent cell divides, it will form two genetically identical daughter cells. And it's of very, very crucial importance that replication must be accurate. Right, we need to make sure that all 46 chromosomes are replicated and that they're replicated accurately. If anything goes wrong, then the daughter cells that are formed will not be genetically identical. There will be some differences, and if there are differences, then there will be problems. Now that brings us to the question of why is it important to produce genetically identical daughter cells? Well, imagine that there is a mistake in DNA replication or mitosis, right? The copying of the DNA is not accurate. Then you end up with daughter cells which are missing DNA or missing genes or missing chromosomes. And as a result, these daughter cells won't be able to function properly like all the other cells in the body. Now, the consequences are especially bad in the case of embryo development. Imagine when your zygote, right, your zygote undergoes mitosis, right, to form the embryo, and that there are mistakes during mitosis. Then some of the cells in the embryo will be missing important genes that they need to function properly. And you'll end up with the embryo not developing properly, and possibly even the fetus not being able to develop until it can be given birth to. Now secondly, if the daughter cells do not have all the genes needed, then they might end up producing abnormal proteins. Because as we'll see in the next chapter, genes are needed to produce proteins. So without the right genes, they will end up producing abnormal proteins or, be missing some important proteins. And so these cells will be recognized by the body as foreign, and they will be rejected by the immune system. And that could lead to some problems with the body. And finally, if the daughter cells are missing some important genes, then they might end up dividing uncontrollably, because some genes are actually very important for controlling the cell division and preventing cells from just dividing anyhow. And the worst case of this uncontrolled cell division is that it might result in cancer. So that is why mitosis is important, and it is important that mitosis takes place accurately so that genetically identical daughter cells are produced. Otherwise, you get problems such as these. Now, we've been looking so far at diploid cells and saying that most of the cells in the human body are diploid and have 46 chromosomes. Now, are there any cells in our body that do not have 46 chromosomes? Well, hopefully you remember the answer from our last chapter. And this picture here gives you a hint as well. Because it is the sperm cells and the egg cells in our body, or more generally the gametes, the sex cells, which are not diploid. They are haploid, and they contain half the number of chromosomes. So in the case of humans, half the number is 23 chromosomes. So here's a quick comparison. While most of the body cells in humans are diploid with 46 chromosomes, our gametes are haploid with only 23 chromosomes. Now, how are these haploid cells produced? Right, we have one parent cell dividing to eventually form 4 genetically distinct, that means different, daughter cells. And the process by which haploid cells are produced is called meiosis. And what meiosis does is that it halves the number of chromosomes. Right, so from a diploid parent cell, we become haploid daughter cells. The number of chromosomes is halved, and that's why we call meiosis a reduction division. Now, those of you who are very sharp in thinking, you might be wondering, why is it that this parent cell here, which is diploid, doesn't just divide into 2 haploid cells, right? Because it just needs to divide itself into half. Well, we're going to take a look at this later when we look into how meiosis actually takes place. But for now, just take it that, in meiosis, we have one parent cell, which is diploid, dividing into 4 haploid daughter cells. So why is meiosis important? Well, meiosis is another type of cell division, and it's important because it is a reduction division. And that means that it produces gametes that are haploid. Now, why is it important for gametes to be haploid? Well, so that during fertilization, when the gametes fuse together, the normal diploid number is restored. So we recall that in fertilization, the male gamete will fuse with the female gamete to form a zygote. And the male gamete is haploid, the female gamete is haploid, so they fuse together to form a zygote that is diploid. Now, if the gametes were diploid, let's say the gamete was diploid, then you get some very weird result, right? You get a zygote with just too much DNA or too much chromosomes. So that's why meiosis is important. It's important for producing gametes that are haploid. So to put it more simply, meiosis is important because it is a reduction division that produces gametes with half the number of chromosomes for the purpose of sexual reproduction. So in humans, our normal cells have 46 chromosomes, our gametes have 23. And other organisms like corn, let's say in corn, the normal corn cells have 20 chromosomes, while their gametes, the pollen and the ovum, have 10 chromosomes. And for example, cats, those of you who love cats, well, cats have, most of their body cells have 38 chromosomes, and their gametes would have 19 chromosomes. So let's summarize, right? We've seen 2 types of cell division, mitosis and meiosis. We've seen that mitosis produces 2 genetically identical daughter cells from one parent cell, and it's important for growth, for repair, and for asexual reproduction. For meiosis, we've seen that from one parent cell, we get 4 genetically non-identical daughter cells, and that's important for producing gametes for the purpose of sexual reproduction. Alright, so I'll see you in the next video.